stream, going to be showing us maybe. I'm going to actually join live now also. You won't see my screen though, which is the right way. Mine's doing the same thing. Enter my name, Wayne.
What's this called?
It's Kajabi's version of video. So it's brand new. It's just called, I don't know what the name is.
No name. The video with no name.
Well, no, I'm sure it's got a name, but I just don't know what it is. And so yeah, cool. There I am, Mark. That looks really nice. So can you get Bob's video on too or not? Because he's not on. Probably not. Probably not.
Do I need to do something?
No. You don't. You don't. No. We're just. You don't worry. Our main audience webinar. We're trying this. See, like, did you follow what I said? Every week, forever. Done this forever. Live, Facebook Live right now over to Facebook Live. And this is doing us. That doesn't look too. No, that's not. Plus, we got all kinds of.
Over this problem.
No, this is. Mark, we're going to have to do something to start. We're going to have to mute us on Kajabi. Mute us on Kajabi. I muted myself on Kajabi, so I should still be on Go to West where we want to be.
Yeah, I think.
Right. Okay. Well, now could you share your screen webinar again? Well, you are. Your screen. Go over now and show webinar. Show that the screen of our new website. We're having wind today and actually pretty nice weather. Yeah, there you go. That's now showing, but it's not showing it on Kajabi. How would we get it? Wouldn't you have to also share your screen there?
Yes.
So, Bob, did you play some golf and know what tournaments happening this weekend?
No, I haven't played since we talked on Monday. We talked all the weekend, so.
Right.
I'm on Kennedy right now.
Yeah, he's announced. I got something. There actually it was positive. Did Tucker Carlson do something last night on his show? And talking about he might have.
I don't know.
Go, Mark. Now we're getting it. Yep, that works. Mark, so that if we're primarily live on GoToWebinar, which we are, I see now I'm getting the same view because I'm just kind of watching. I'm an attendee on the Kajabi one. Cool. So, Bob, where's the?
No.
Go ahead, Mark. Mark. Well, but I'm muted on Kajabi, which is what I don't want to be on. I'm an attendee there. But now we're not, Bob's just not saying.
I'm not talking for a conversation start. It sounds like you guys are still working on it.
PGA tournament is today.
Today is the event in New Orleans. I don't know the name of it. It's a team event where two players play last year and this year. Cantlay and together, and they wiped them last year, and they were both live in the Hilton event last weekend. So that's one of them goes off. They're pretty tough to beat.
And how is it played? Is it just the top team?
No. They play. I think they play better ball one day, and they play a scramble one day, and back and forth. I'm not positive about that.
And it's a tournament.
They play twice at better ball and twice at alternate shots.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't you talk a little bit about your what's happening with Bobby Kennedy Jr. and I'll give the audience a little bit of mine.
Well, all I can say is that I just this morning listened to a speech, which was an hour and 15 minutes, and he went into a lot of different topics. I didn't agree with what to say, but I agreed with an awful lot of it, and particularly about that aspect of it. And I know the topic that would probably be most germane, where he had, and it's not climate, by the way, it's a big difference. Is that in this country, I'm just going to stick to the United States because most of his focus was on the United States, need to be stopped because they're killing Americans in profits. And so that's what I think the reason why capitalism gets a bad name. And it's not capitalism, it's really the collusion between crony capitalism, which is putting enough money into big government that they have whatever solution that they want to the detriment and affected. And he went into a long discussion about the Hudson River, and I lived in New Jersey, grew up there, and I was 8 miles from the Hudson River. So, and I was never an outdoorsman, fisherman, and all that kind of stuff, but I did understand how important, non-pollution was, and I left there. I'm sure it's way worse, but they did a lot of work in his environmental practice, suing polluters, and have made a significant impact in the law to change the way business operate and to the benefit of the people. And I, for one, I'm a lawyer, although I don't practice, but I have that kind of where I've always believed in the rule of law, and it's my view that that's really always the best way to fix things is to use the law. I'm seeing that's not exactly right now, and it's because the administration is the one that's using the law against us, and therefore when the government supports it compared to not supporting the rule of law, I believe there's a great solution to be had there. And what I particularly like that, whether you're a Trump fan or not, and I'm not sure where I fall on that question either, I think they both, Kennedy and Trump, realize that government's in bed with big business, and that whether you like this term or not, it's true. That's what it means is fascism. That is the exact definition of fascism. And we need to have government that's supporting the people, not the companies that are taking from the people. And that shell of every problem that we have in this country. And if Kennedy is able to A, get the nomination, B, win the election, and C, follow through on what he said he's going to do, the turn that I've been waiting for, maybe the fourth turn.
No, I hope it'd be the first, because I might.
Well, okay, the beginning of the first, yes, right.
I got to ask Mark a quick question. Mark, I see myself on one song that I think is the Kajabi, 4 different places. No, 3. Why? What is causing that to be the case?
This is this one. Yeah. This is go to webinar.
Right. Okay. All right. Got it. But on the go to webinar, right now it's back to where it's just Bob and I, which is where we kind of want it to be, right? That's for that view. Got it. Okay. So Bob, what have you heard? I haven't heard anything, because you and I talked a couple times already about this previously. He indicated that he was potentially going to run a couple of weeks ago, and then I found out about it very soon after that occurred, and I signed up. And actually, I got an email today, asking me if I was still willing to help, which I am in his campaign. But what have you heard from the Democratic side about the administration, who I'm assuming believes they're going to run unopposed, right? Or it's just like a slam dunk that Biden gets renominated? Or do you not think that's the case?
The best part about his speech really was outlining how his father, who faced the same odds, which was not really being supported by the DNC and the existing presidential, I use the word regime, people really take offense to that, but you can use whatever word you want to talk about the Biden administration, and how they were able to get the people in the middle to coalesce around their campaign, starting with the college campuses, surprisingly enough. And his point is that when you tell people the truth after not hearing the truth for so long, you gain a groundswell of support. So he's basically a left. I hate this term left and right. I really do. But let's say he's a Democratic populist and Trump is a Republican populist. But if you know Trump's history, he was a Democrat before he became a Republican. So I think in a lot of ways they have similar backgrounds and interests. I think Trump's a little bit more global in perspective, and Kennedy's a little bit more domestic in perspective. And either way, they're both going to upset the apple cart, and the apple cart needs to be upset.
Well, I think we both agree with that. I just am asking whether you've seen. I haven't seen anything from the current administration about their thoughts about Kennedy running, because they've got to beat him before they beat whoever the Republicans have. I mean, so.
I agree. So you know that I follow Robert Barnes. I didn't really get a chance to hear everything that they talked about last night, and they had Brett Weinstein on, and so they had a different topic, and they didn't get into this at all. And so I knew that Kennedy was announcing, and I had heard that there was bombs in Seattle while he was announcing, and I said, well, he's not in Seattle, he's in Boston, which turned out to be accurate. And then there was a fire alarm that went off in the middle of his speech. Point is, I didn't find out the details of his speech until today, and the reaction to it, I'm still going to have to do a little work on hearing about. So, a little 24 hours from now, I'll answer that.
If you heard reaction. So now let's go back and talk through a little bit of history again here, because many of you watching this, and it's going to be most of you on replay, are way too young to. You weren't even alive yet when this happened, but when Kennedy died in 64, he was replaced by Lyndon Johnson.
63, but yeah.
Well, 63. And then Lyndon Johnson ran again in 64, ran as the sitting president in 64, correct?
Correct.
And won.
Right.
And then in 68, he would have been, if he would have been elected, he would have been serving his second term. But did he lose in a primary to Humphrey? Because didn't Nixon was elected in 68. Didn't Nixon beat Humphrey?
I don't know the exact details. My recollection is that there was so much heat on Johnson because of the opposition to the Vietnam War that he kind of dove in with both feet. And if you want to go back to the statement I made about collusion with government and business, one of the biggest benefactors of I'm talking about the military industrial complex here, the biggest benefactors of the Vietnam War was Bell Helicopter, because they were blowing those things out of the sky every day. I think the lifespan of a helicopter pilot in Vietnam was something less than 2 days. So it was not a good place to be. And Lyndon Johnson owned a very significant, if not majority, interest in Bell Helicopter. Anyway, having said that, that was the kind of pressure that he was under. And eventually Kennedy's groundswell, then the death of Kennedy, and I don't know where this fit, he decided not to run and withdrew from running for that term in 68. Hence, Humphrey got the nomination. And I don't remember the timeline on when he quit and when Robert Kennedy was assassinated.
I'm reading it right now, okay?
Yeah.
He quit very early, you're right. He quit after the New Hampshire primary, and he had won it narrowly over, who else? Robert Kennedy, and who was the third guy that would have been in that mix?
I would imagine it was Humphrey, but I don't know.
No.
Oh, wait, Wallace.
No, he was still independent, but Eugene McCarthy, remember him?
Oh, yeah, I liked him, yeah.
And then, so Lyndon Johnson narrowly won the primary over McCarthy, Kennedy, and Humphrey.
Mm-hmm.
And then he decided to withdraw right after that, I guess. So
Was that the first? So Iowa, New Hampshire, is that the way it went then?
No, it was still, Iowa wasn't first. New Hampshire, I think, was first then.
Well, Iowa had that caucus, so they don't really count that, I guess. Everything keeps changing. So what we know now and what we knew then are not the same. I don't think I was paying much attention, frankly.
And then, after Kennedy was killed, Humphrey barely won the Democratic nomination over McCarthy, who I bet people haven't even heard of McCarthy. And Nixon won it over Nelson Rockefeller. And guess who else?
Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, Ronald Reagan. So you remember who was the sitting governor of California.
Right.
And again, everybody doesn't remember Ronald Reagan became president then in 80.
Right.
Yeah, so.
12 years later.
Right. Wow. And George Wallace ran as an independent.
Yeah.
And
so I think it's important for those people who don't understand history or don't know current updates on history that Robert Kennedy was supposedly assassinated by Sirhan Sirhan, who was a lone gunman. He must have been Lee Harvey Oswald's, brother from another mother. And then subsequently, and even as recently as the last couple of years, it's been proven that he didn't really do it and that he was under mind control situations, and that Robert Kennedy Jr., who's now running for president, is totally in support of Sirhan and was even there to at least argue for him to be released from prison. Whether or not he was or not, I don't remember that part of it, but he's convinced Sirhan didn't do it. And the forensic evidence today proves that he didn't do it. So when you say that to people, especially people who don't really pay close attention to the evolution of storylines, they look at me like I'm crazy, another conspiracy theory. But if you look up there, you can find the facts about Kennedy supporting Sirhan because he does not believe that he was the one who assassinated his father, despite the fact he's been in prison since 1968.
He's still alive, huh?
Yeah, he's still alive.
That was an interesting time. And again, not one that I paid a heck of a lot of attention to. I was 16 then, and just, in my junior year in high school. And no, actually in my senior year in high school. No, that's not right. In January, so in the early part of the year, I was a junior. So my junior year in high school. And I was young anyway. And honestly, I really don't even remember paying attention.
You couldn't vote. You couldn't vote.
No, I could not vote. That's correct.
I think that was the first year I was, so 1968, I was 22.
And that would have been the first year.
The first time I had a chance to vote.
Yeah. But the Vietnam War, as you said, was a lot more of a focus by me and my classmates because we were very likely a potential to go. And you're right.
I was in the eye of the storm, my friend.
They used to say two things. They used to say that both first lieutenants and helicopter pilots had a lifespan of about 2 days in Vietnam.
Yeah, right. So interesting fact that Kennedy brought up, and I didn't know these facts, but he talked about the reason why Vietnam was so divisive was that the reason that most people were able to stay out of the draft eventually. I was in the beginning of the draft, but I was able to get a deferment, so I didn't, get into a situation where I had to go. But so college entrance and sustainability in college kept people out of Vietnam.
We've got some interesting background noise, and it's not coming from, I don't think, either Bob or I. So we should. All right, it just went away. Whatever that was. Did you hear that, Bob? It was like.
Yeah, that reminds me when I'm out playing golf and there's a mockingbird up in a tree laughing when I'm swinging. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, he said.
Yeah.
So the being in college kept you out of the draft. So the people who weren't financially able or intellectually capable of being in college were the ones who were in the draft. So he said 45% of the paratroopers in Vietnam were black. And he said, is it fair that we're sending, all of our black young men to fight our war in Vietnam? And then, of course, then you can juxtapose Muhammad Ali on top of that, saying, I ain't got no fight with them Viet Cong. So, I don't know. This is going to get deep into history here. I don't really want to go down that tangent. But if you don't know that history, I really recommend you watch some video.
Yeah. By the way, just changing subjects a little, just because Mark's got it up here. Our new logo, everybody, is on the screen here for the Economic Action Team. And the main change is the globe here, where we have blue up on the top, indicating the sky. Mark, that's better too, by the way, that you lightened that a little. And then green, sort of indicating the vegetation and animals to a certain extent growing on the earth, and then the brown being the soil, and below that.
Where's the water?
Well, people are gonna, and I've already had people say that, well, yeah, where's the water? The reality is you could say it's also the opposite way around.
Blue. Top blue is the sky, the medium blue is the water.
But we had quite a few people weigh in on this, and people enjoyed it. This is the new website that Mark's scrolling through in the background that will be live probably a week from now. We're almost done with it. And it's going to be much more focused on not so much the education side of what we're doing, but on the things we're not doing as well as we'd like right now, which is helping all of you that are members of EAT, and you're either a member because you just are a student, a business person, just a person, a working person who cares about the environment and cares about the planet and would like to maybe see if you could do some things to maybe make a little money. So maybe you're not right now, maybe you are, maybe that's your business, but we're going to really start to provide a lot more services for our members that aren't just education. So we're going to have a digital office that you'll be able to go to and meet with other like-minded people and form teams to go get business, for example. And hopefully, the business you would get will be from other EAT members that have their own companies that are already needing the kinds of service you might provide. So I'll give an example. Let's say you're a farmer and you're using some kind of an incredible tillage method that you've just sort of developed. And it's tillage, by the way, is just working the top of the soil to make it easier for crops to grow in it. So let's say you've developed that and you join EAT because you hope that you'll be able to find potential customers, get more education. You want to listen to people like Mark Shepard, who are kind of your heroes. And now, though, what we're going to do as well, and stay right there, Mark, on EAT Eco Intelligence Group, we're calling this side of the business our Eco Intelligence Group, to where we would connect you with Mark Shepard or with other farmers that have businesses that are in the EAT community and get them knowledgeable about your tillage method. So now you could be selling the patent rights, you could be selling the tillage equipment, I'm just sort of making this up, to other business owners that are members of EAT. And I'll be very open and say that we've modeled this a little bit like a company that we have some involvement with, which is called Advisory Cloud. And Advisory Cloud has two kinds of members. And one type of member is business people who want to serve on an advisory board for a company. And that's one type of Advisory Cloud member. That would be analogous in our new EAT approach to our members of the Eco Intelligence Group that are providing services. The second kind of member of Advisory Cloud are companies that want advisory boards. So in that company, Advisory Cloud, and we had the leader of that company, the founder, on as one of our speakers here on the EAT community not too long ago. We, in that group, those companies, they, on Advisory Cloud, they choose 3 boards that they want to be members of. In our case, it's going to be a little different in that the companies that are members will be able to choose any number of different people that are members in the first group to be consultants for them, advisors for them, mentors to them, you name it. And they'll work out the working relationships themselves. We won't lead in that, but we will probably help. By the way, the logo we're going to create, and this is not it yet, but it's going to look like this. This circle is going to be more of a square, but still will have an opening in the middle, and it'll be it's intended to show light in the middle of a dark or green area, which is the eco-intelligence side of the process. So we'll continue to be doing webinars. We're continuing to be doing education. You'll still be able to hear the world experts in a variety of areas as an EAT member, but you'll also be able, if you choose, to be an eco-intelligence member where you're either getting services from the rest of the community, or you're the people in the community providing those services to the people that will buy them. And that the whole new website's going to show that in a much more detailed way than I've just described. And Bob hasn't heard a lot about this, so I'm curious, is this making sense to you, Bob, and what it is? So,
yeah, what I was thinking about was, do you have any, how should I put this? The chefs of the world that grow their own stuff, and do you have any of those people in your group? And if not,
oh, sure.
Yeah.
There are definitely, of our 32,000 members, there are probably, I'm going to make the number up, but people who you can, just by the information they've given us as members, there's got to be 200 or 300, I'll call them green chefs. Yes, that are members. Absolutely.
It all makes sense to me. I think anytime that you're able to create an information group around you that expands your horizon, relationships are the most important part of business, because if you have a question, it's always better to go ask somebody has already done it than go and try to read everything you can find online and figure out what's true and what's not true, and what works and what doesn't work, and how the location you're in, the weather you're in, the climate, the soil, all those things will impact the results you get.
And by the way, let's just go to something that you're interested in, and that's golf, and more specifically in Chi golf.
I'm interested in eating too, just in case you didn't forget that.
Oh, that's fine. You can be doing that. But back to on the golf side, and that the hat that Bob's wearing, by the way, is the logo for Chi Golf. Anyway, I would say they're the kind of golfer that would be a member of EAT, and that's not something we've ever asked people, but of 32,000 members, I can't imagine that 1,000 or more aren't, once a week golfers, recreational golfers. I gotta think that's the case, at least somewhere in that range. Well, I would think those kinds of golfers that are already green earth sort of mentality would be very good potential customers for Chi Golf. So there's an example of where Chi Golf would want to be a member of EAT to get, again, potential business from those 1,000, if that's the right number, of golfers, because they're more likely than just your average golfer who, doesn't have any real green interests or at all.
But I think it goes to be growing things. The world we live in, the air we breathe, the connections to the earth don't necessarily have to do with growing, but it's part of what most, I would expect, people that farm and do that kind of work enjoy, because they're outside. They're not sitting inside like we are right now talking to a box. And that's what golf is about, is being out in nature, and some of the best nature the world's got to offer. Yeah. So, and then the spirituality, the physicality of it would really have an impact on people too. And I think there's a playfulness to it that makes it a pastime rather than an occupation. So yeah, I think there are probably a lot of people that would be interested.
By the way, Bob, I'm noticing that Hans is here again today. Have you guys ever connected to talk about how?
No, we never have.
So anyway, now I'm prompting both of you. You're here together to connect with each other at some point.
Yeah.
But yes, I think that's typical of golf anyway. You're right, Bob. I can't imagine that most golfers aren't connected with nature in a more solid and significant way than somebody that never thought about golf, right? I mean, so yes. But now you take Chi golf into play, where you've got a combination of an exercise physicality that's probably different than the norm for a golfer, and then the spirituality side with a meditative circumstance. And now you've got even a more, I think, economic person that fits that profile.
Right. There's a spirituality for sure, and the more that you are able to do the physical part that we teach, the more you tap into the spiritual part. And the more you tap into the spiritual part, the more you appreciate where you are in space and time, and the more you enjoy it. And the more you start seeing hope and good instead of things that maybe aren't quite following that description.
By the way, can Mark pull up, because he has access to it, anything on the Chi Golf page that is new and different that you and David have put up there?
We haven't put anything up that's relative. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, but nothing.
Nothing
Let's
really.
do it. Chi.golf, Mark, QI.golf.
No, I think it's not on the net generally. So Bob, back to the election, and what speech did Bobby Kennedy Jr. say? What are his steps going to be now? Is he going to get out, and where is he going to?
You know, I didn't hear that too much. So he didn't get into what's going to happen. He just talked about how he thinks that telling the truth is going to be what is going to bring everybody together. The second point that he made is that when the United States was what we remember when we were young, 1945 to 1975, it had the biggest history, and that's what gave it its economic force. So is he going to play that?
Yeah, no, my keyboard, and I was being ADHD and messing with some buttons on the bottom of it, and I think so I had to make sure to turn it back on.
Okay. Well, I'm talking about Mark. He's playing that.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Well, it's from Caddyshack.
Well, there are young people that have never heard of Caddyshack either.
The volume's not on.
Well, they may not be able to do it. Let's see. It's maybe. While he's seen volume on here,
I like you, Betty.
have you gotten
Denny's.
any more into?
I'm gonna give you a little
And I'll
advice.
tell you, I have.
There's a force in the universe
With AI
makes things happen.
over the last week.
Topics yet, because one of the things I started with was your opinion about Kennedy, and I know you have environmental impact issues there, so I'm curious what you think.
Well, again, my knowledge of him is I need to get more knowledgeable. I think if he were the option versus Trump, it wouldn't be hard to sway me towards him, because I agree with you. I think he is a populist, and I don't know about what his interests or his knowledge of international issues are, or is.
That is an issue. I don't either.
Yeah, and I want to get more educated about that. I'm sure he can very easily surround himself with experts that have that expertise if he doesn't. I would, I would hope he'd be a great alternative to the Biden group, who are clearly, at least, if not him, then somebody else that's like him are going to be running. Although I think he will run. I think it's going to take some huge health, mental stability related claim or something that he does that's so flat out stupid that shows he is mentally incompetent to be able to run again at his.
Are you talking about Biden?
Biden, yes, yeah. And then I've always had a problem with Trump's insincerity, lack of sincerity. I just don't think the guy is very sincere at all, or he's so full of himself that bothers me. I actually think he did do a good job of surrounding himself with people that did a good job of dealing with that. And I would guess.
Like I said, you're on a point that Kennedy brought up, which was what Trump failed on miserably was COVID. And you and I have talked about this 1,000 times. All right.
Yeah.
And the reason he failed is he listened to the wrong people. And Kennedy said it's his job to push back against the bureaucracy, and he failed on that one. And I completely agree with that. So much so that the person, Kennedy actually wrote the book about the person that Trump trusted to be the spokesperson, and he basically hijacked his presidency. And I would bet dollars to donuts, putting the election integrity aside, that the reason he lost that election was because he was no longer in control the last 10 months of his presidency.
And that was probably a very, very bad decision. And we don't have to just not mention names. I'm pretty sure you're talking about Fauci. And I think it would be interesting to know what previous relationship that Trump had with Fauci. And my guess is it was none. That he just emerged as this thing began and was very influential and had a great influence on Trump. I'm not sure why.
So if you think about it, and I'm not trying to justify Trump's decision here, I think it was a wrong decision. I said it at the time. But I mean, he had no preparation for being president. I don't think he even expected to win really until the very end. And if you listen to what he talks about, he's always been much more global in his foreign relations positioning. When it came to domestic policy, he kind of had to depend on somebody else. Fauci'd been there for 40 years through how many presidents, and it was easy to listen to him because he represented the science. Well, Trump doesn't know that much about science, or at least he didn't. I don't agree with that statement. I really think he does know a lot about science, but for some reason, once Fauci got let out of the box, he couldn't put him back in again. It's like squeezing the toothpaste out of the tube. Once it's out, it's not going back in. And once everybody started buying into the Fauci stuff, even though Trump pushed back a little bit, classic example was when Trump said hydroxychloroquine would fix the problem, which is proven to be the truth. He wasn't able to overcome.
He couldn't overcome it. He couldn't argue well.
Yeah, exactly. And so that at that point, it was over for him.
Yeah.
So that's one of those times where he really needed to step up and didn't.
Yeah, he's going to have to address those mistakes, I think, during this new run, in some way.
Well, it's gonna be interesting to see how he finally starts saying, that was probably a mistake, and because I think that would make him more human. Right now, he thinks he's infallible, and we all know that's not true.
Yeah, yeah. Well, on the environmental side, I've been a defender and a follower to a certain extent of Bobby Kennedy for a long time. I was an early member of River Keepers, which is the group that he founded to protect the Hudson.
Mhm.
And probably about 97, I actually went to the River Keepers annual gala event in New York, where the CEO of AIG Insurance's environmental group, a guy named Joe Boren, was given an award for his support of river keepers, as well as another well-known, way better known than Joe Boren at AIG. The second person that received the award that year, so they would give her an award out every year, was the actor from, why am I forgetting his name? From 1923 and from
Harrison Ford.
Indiana Jones. Why am I just not thinking of his name?
Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford and Joe Boren were the winners of whatever they would give out as kind of man of the year or whatever for that year. And because we were big time into the environmental insurance world at that point, Deb and I attended. And the most interesting person that I met there, who was also a supporter, and I think I've told you this, but was an athlete and somebody that I had.
What year was it? What year?
19, probably 97, maybe 98.
Okay.
It was still an active, but at the very end of his career then.
Baseball,
Tennis.
football, basketball, tennis. Okay. Bjorn Borg.
No,
No, he's going way gone.
John McEnroe.
John. Oh, yeah, you keep liking it.
And John was so stoned that night that he could hardly talk. He was just wasted. It was very lucky for him that they didn't ask him to talk, to do any, because I met him at a the pre-event party, and then I actually at the post-event party where the guy he was out of it because at that point it was a combination of whatever he was on drugs wise, as well as alcohol. And so he was, he was just not hardly there. I think they sort of escorted him out at the end for the party afterwards. But Bobby Kennedy Jr. was there. So that I met him there. And because another guy that I ended up meeting then later, when I became a part of IOE, the Institute of Economics, who was very active and is a really interesting guy, is Woody Harrelson.
Oh, really?
And Woody Harrelson was a part of River Keepers, was very active, and a good friend of, at least then, of Bobby Kennedy Jr. So, and didn't we figure out the other day that Bobby Kennedy is, what did we figure his birth year was? Didn't we see that? It was 1954.
Well, he talks about his father doing the campaign, and he was 14, so that would have made him
54. So he's
right.
a couple
Same
years
as you.
younger. Yeah, a couple of years younger. So that, he's prime age-wise to be doing this.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how this goes.
Well, I like the fact that he's got an idea on how to fix things, and I agree with his idea. And so whether he'll be able to be more effective fighting the bureaucracy that exists in Washington. It's been there for so many years that it's going to be difficult to budge. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see.
So we got about 10 minutes left. Hans or anybody else in the audience, Alicia, others, just throw in some questions if you have them. But real quickly, I had just talk about what we do during our lives during this session on Thursdays. I had an eye doctor appointment this week, and I decided to go to a new eye doctor. My previous one had been somebody I'd been loyal to for over 30 years, and I had moved a long way away from where she and her husband's office were, and I just finally decided I'm tired of driving, an hour and a half to get to my eye doctor, and so I picked somebody local, and really liked him. It was a great experience, and actually got some new contacts that I'm not wearing today because I'm going to start them tomorrow. They're extended wear, which is what I used to have, and my previous doctor had put me back on dailies, and I hated those suckers because I had to take them out and you couldn't even clean them. I mean, you couldn't even use the same one. You had to use a new one every day. And I'm not sure they ever really fit exactly right. My vision was fine with them, but it was just, they weren't ever comfortable. Anyway, I'm hopeful these are, but this is new science. So we're always about new science here. When was the last time you went to an eye doctor, Bob?
I stopped going when I got cataract surgery. I went a couple of times. I went a couple of times, and he said, "You're fine." And then he retired, and the office started calling me saying, "You need to come back." Well, it turns out because I don't really need corrective lenses anymore, I was going to have to pay for the office visit. I said, well, if I don't have a need, then why won't I even go there? So I don't go anymore.
Wow. So you don't have any genetic history of glaucoma, which is something.
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, I do. My dad had glaucoma. And do you remember how they would test you for glaucoma?
Some kind of air thing?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, right.
Air. That was very disturbing for a lot of people. It never didn't bother me that much, but that's some new science. So I'm taking the glasses off here just to show the device that he used was about as big as this roll of toilet papers, okay, of paper towels, I mean. And it had a little tip on it like this, and he put it up just here, and he said, just look at it. It had a little red light, and the light turned green, and I didn't even feel a puff. He said, you still will feel a little. I didn't feel anything. And then it took about that long on that eye. He went over and did it on that eye. He looked at the results and said, you don't have glaucoma. And remember, the way that they test, it's pressure. So it's what is pressure that and when you get glaucoma, your eyes lose their pressure. So they basically you can lose them because they'll recede. And anyway, so what were your symptoms? I'm sure we've talked about this, I'm not remembering, prior to your cataract surgery. Did you have floaters, and what were you starting to have symptomatically?
I did have, don't ask me how, I'm trying to remember how that happened. I remember having a flash. And so, you get that floater thing. I had that a couple times. And I also had a partially detached retina, which when I first time I went there, this is a long time ago, she was able to use a laser to fix whatever that problem was. And then over time, it was just, I couldn't see. I mean, I lost clarity. And so I had to have brighter and brighter lights.
How long ago did you have the surgery?
Just looked that up Tuesday. It was 2017, so.
That's what I thought. I mean, I remember it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, 2017. Yeah, so going on let's say 5 years ago. And the greatest thing that ever happened to me, I went from not being able to see, I don't need I don't need glasses to do anything except read. And that was by choice. When you have cataract surgery, you have the choice between having both eyes work the way they do, so long or short. So you can have short vision and then you need glasses for long vision, or vice versa. Or some people do one eye, one long and one short. I don't mind wearing glasses to read. And frankly, I can use my computer, I can use my phone if I'm in decent light. The worst is when I'm in a restaurant and it's dark. And I don't even carry glasses with me anymore. I used to have 15 pairs of.
We had discussions because we were business partners and even that when you were deciding whether to go with the long, short, or one eye, one eye the other. So.
Well, being a golfer, it was the easiest decision for me. I wanted the long vision, and then, it's still I can still see a putt even today without glasses. It's only like right here that I need something. So 10 feet, no problem.
Well, and that's why I asked about the cataracts, because my old doctor said you have no evidence that you're currently in line for cataracts.
No cataracts at all. Yeah.
How quickly do they come on? He said usually very slowly.
Yeah, right.
And so I'm going, shoot. Because again, I wished I'd had them because then I could get the surgery for free because it would be covered.
Right. Yeah, it's not cheap either. It's a couple $1,000s an eye.
Yeah, and not just
each eye. Right?
Not cheap at all.
Right.
Mark, that looks really good on that one. So we do just need to change. Go to the other one. Go to the one you put on the second page, and let's just see how you change that. Yeah, down here. There. Well, and I don't know. It isn't so much that doesn't look good. That looks fine. Go back up to that. Maybe you changed it already, right above there, where it talks about, Y build. That just looks weird there. That Y build and advisory board is way too small. Maybe try just increasing the size of that first. I think that might.
Make the other one bigger.
I think make the other one bigger because the only thing that looks a little weird about the key benefits one is it looks a little blurry, frankly. Go back to the other one again because I'm guessing it's almost like my eye exam. Which one's better, this one or this one? Which one? See, this one looks clearer, Mark. Yeah, it does. I don't know why. Isn't the headline? It's that highly qualified network. That just looks, it's got a little blurriness to it. I don't know why. By the way, I've got 2 minutes here. Any questions from anybody? By the way, I do have kind of a hard stop. I do want to say this program that we've been in now, Bob, I've talked about it on these sessions called Neighbor, which is where we store other people's vehicles. We've got a couple shipping containers. We've got trailers. We've got pallets. This is an interesting one. A lady is renting a 10 by 50 foot space where there's, 4-foot pallets. It's not quite taking all of 1050. And her business is called Spatter. Tell me what her business is, Bob. So the pallets, I'm not going to tell you what's on the pallets, but they are full of what she is the main tool that she has in her business. And her business is called Spatter, and it's in the entertainment area.
Paintball, I don't know.
Well, it's not a lot off of that, but this is kind of crazy. Her business is, I'll call it a rage business. People, what's stored on those pallets are dishes. And you go into this room and you have a sledgehammer or whatever, and you just break apart dishes.
Did you say rage? I think you said rave. I get it now.
Rage, I said.
Yeah, rage. Yeah. Okay.
Guess what you pay to do this, Bob?
Is it timed?
It is timed. You get 35 minutes. So they go a 35-minute session, followed by 25 minutes to clean up, and then a next session. So 35 minutes,
$100.
$95. You're pretty darn close.
Mm-hmm.
You're spending 95 bucks to go in and break dishes.
Well, I guess it's better than getting a divorce, right?
Maybe so. And now you see why the business is called Spatter.
Instead of rage. Spatter. Okay.
Well, anyway, my point is, Neighbor has been a great business for us. And in less than 6 months, we just topped $1,000 a month
Good.
from just storing people's stuff. Well, I've got a guy that's coming by right here soon after 4 my time, because he's one of the people that's storing, and I don't need to see him, but I kind of just want to. And by the way, we only have 11 customers, but 11 customers that now we make that we just passed 1,000 a month.
Hmm.
And I don't have to do anything. I mean, this is on gravel. I mean, you could use your driveway. People are doing it in certain areas where they're renting their driveway out.
Where there's no homeowners association.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it'd be a problem if you've got homeowners associations.
Yeah, Arizona is horrible. Just horrible.
Well, you should hear our interviewee just 2 days ago, Bob, was Gwen Bale, and she is the chicken lady in New Jersey. So
I saw the headline when the email came out.
Yeah, and she was awesome. And she's helped cities in New Jersey get put laws in place that allow backyard chickens, that allow people that. In Colorado, I just think anybody can have chickens. I don't think you have to. But
unless you're in a subdivision which has an HOA, which doesn't allow you to do anything. Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's in New Jersey, you take a class to be able to have chickens, just like your driver's license or whatever.
You know, the one thing that pressed upon me recently is, when you think about it, is that they've been making rules and regulations forever. And so I heard somewhere that if the government wanted to, they could find every person in the country is violating at least 3 laws a day that they're not even aware exist, because there's so many of them.
Yeah. And there's Gwen, by the way, everybody.
Very cool.
Well, I think we've kind of reached our end, and everybody in the audience has been really quiet. We don't have any questions. Remember, this is Talk with Wayne and Bob. So next week, come with questions, everybody.
I think you ought to send the questions out and ask them to send you the questions before we even start.
And we had a discussion about that this week with our staff, Bob, and that's exactly what everybody said. Send out questions. And we send out 2 or 3 emails a week. So, and we get great open rates. I mean, we've discussed this. We get 20% plus open rates on our email.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're.
I'm going to let you go, and good luck with your next customer.
Well, and I'm actually, it's Earth Day, everybody, coming up Saturday. And instead of doing something for a booth ourselves at some event, I'm actually going to volunteer with an event that's going on in Fort Collins. And I'm going to do cleanup at the end of the day for Earth Day. So everybody do maybe find almost every place you live in the country is going to have something going on Earth Day related. So,
and keep me posted on your Kennedy inquiry. I'm curious to see how that develops.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, Mark,
All
thank you. You're always the best. So is everybody on the team. Arib, I don't think is there today. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. We will have a replay webinar tomorrow. And Mark, who do we have live next week? Anybody? No, next week, live. Mark Driscoll? Okay. All right, and Mark's been on with us before, but look forward to Mark next week. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, Bob.
Yeah.